Okay, welcome to the channel and welcome to a bonus Banter in the Box video. But it's a Banter in the Box video with a difference. There is no banter in this video. This is a video where I will take you through the reviews that I send out on a regular basis. Now the reason I'm doing this video is, well, there's a number of reasons really. We've had our first invalid transfer of the season from debut manager Di Maloney. Now every season somebody, normally more than one person, makes an invalid transfer at some point, so that's no surprise, especially with a debut manager. I've also had a question from an experienced manager, Jordan Williams, the Creed Bratton Society, who messaged me to ask whether or not he could transfer in a certain player. And a couple of our older managers, Sashamas FC manager and Wayne Robinson, and Thames Ironworks FC manager Darren Ravel, have had some problems with the technology, bless them. So I thought what I would do is I would take you through the weekly updates that I send out. So if you already understand all of the tabs on the updates that I send out and you have no problem navigating around them, then you can switch off now. But if there is anything around the stats that I send out that you're unclear about, keep watching this video, because I have made some changes this season that should enhance the stats that you've been receiving over previous seasons, and I'll explain more about that later. What I'm sharing on screen is what you will see when you open the attachment when I send out a weekly update, and typically the attachment should open on the league table tab. Now in terms of what I'm doing the stats on, and for those of you that have worked in an office it will be obvious, but some of you who've never worked in an office it might not be. The stats are produced on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. If you are using a PC or a laptop, pretty much all PC and laptops have some sort of home office software already on them when you purchase them, and so you should have no problem opening and viewing the stats on those devices and using all of the features that I'm going to come to explain. If you are using a tablet or a mobile phone, whether that's Android or iPhone, to view the stats, you are best off downloading the Microsoft Excel app in order for you to enjoy the full features that I'm going to explain shortly. If you're already viewing the stats on your tablet or mobile phone without any problems, then happy days, you don't need to download the app. But when I talk about some of the things that you can do with the stats that I send out, if you can't currently do that, then you might want to consider downloading the Microsoft Excel app. Some managers have talked about when they're viewing the player tabs that they open up 29 pages. It should all just appear on the same page, and I'm going to explain why. So there's been no changes this season in terms of that. I've always used Microsoft Excel to produce the Family Fantasy Football League stats. Well, I say always. In the very, very early seasons, in the mid 90s, first 2 or 3 seasons, I actually wrote the stats out by hand on pen and paper, and then photocopied them and sent them round. That took absolutely ages. Thank God those days are gone. But for a long time now, the stats have been produced on Excel. There's a big difference between, the difference between last season's stats and this season's stats is last season the players were split over 4 tabs: goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, forward. This season the players are all on a single tab, and that was deliberate and should be an enhancement, and I'll explain what that is. But just to take you through the FFFL stats that you see, when you open the stats on the email that I send out, as I say, you would generally be presented with a league table tab, and I just want to talk you through that league table because I've assumed that everyone understands it, but it might not be obvious to everyone. So the first column is obviously the league position, 1 to 28. The second column is the team name, self-explanatory. The third column is the manager of that team. The fourth column is the transfer budget. Now, obviously, at the start of the season, we all started off with 80 million, so everyone has an 80 million pounds transfer budget. That transfer budget will change during the season. Those of you who have read the rules will know that at the end of each month, all of the teams in the bottom half of the table will receive an extra 5 million pounds to their budget. So at the end of September, all of the teams in the bottom half's transfer budget will change to 85 million. The teams that are in the bottom half of the table at midnight on a month end receive that 5 million pounds increase each month. And some people may see their transfer budget being reduced for the first time this season because we've introduced tactical gambits. If you don't know what they are, read the rules, but you can use some of your transfer budget if you have enough money available to purchase a tactical gambit. All bar one of them costs 5 million pounds. There is one of them that's really good that costs 10 million pounds. So your transfer budget is how much budget you have got to spend, not how much your team adds up to. That's how much money you can spend on your team. The form doesn't apply at the moment because we're in we've only had one full week of the season. We're currently in the midst of the second week of the season, but the form column shows which teams have gone up in the table or down in the table or stayed in the same place compared to the previous week. The MON column is the manager of the month points. So these are the points that you have scored during the current calendar month, and obviously the manager that scores the most points in that calendar month receives a manager of the month award and a £10 prize money at the end of the season. The WW column is how many weekly wins you have scored. The ASS column is how many assists your team have scored. The GLS column is how many goals your team have scored. The HWT column is your highest weekly total for the season. The W/PTS column is the points that you have scored in the last week, and the T/PTS column is your total points this season. Where some cells are highlighted, that is indicating which manager is currently leading that particular competition. So Greece Lightning has the most manager of the season points so far in September, so they are highlighted. Likewise, Greece Lightning has the most number of weekly wins so far this season. There's only been 1 week, and Greece Lightning got the weekly win in the first week, so he's highlighted. Greece Lightning has the highest number of assists with 7, and lots of teams are highlighted on the goals column because they are all leading with the most goals, with 5 goals. Greece Lightning has so far set the highest weekly total for the season on 57, weekly points is not highlighted because that's just the weekly points column. Although when I send out the results of each game week, the person that scored the highest number of points that week and therefore got the weekly win will see their weekly points highlighted green, and the team that scored the lowest number of points this week will see their weekly points highlighted red. And this comes up every now and again, and very rarely, but has already come up, where a team is highlighted red, as in the Appleys United. That is because, as it says at the very bottom, as a result of a player moving clubs, the team has now become invalid. It was valid when the season starts, but a player's moved clubs and the team has now become invalid because the Appleys United have 2 players from a club that is not the Appleys United's nominated club, and therefore, as per the rules, James can keep that situation like that for as long as he wants, but the first transfer James makes will have to be to remove one of those players so that his team then becomes valid. So that's the league table tab, all very clear. Now when you open the spreadsheet for the first time, you will notice at the bottom, hopefully you can see that arrow, that there are all different tabs along the bottom. I'm showing you the league table tab. If you click the FFL ranking table, you will see all of the rankings of the FFFL managers. That corresponds to what I shared with you in the Meet the Managers videos at the start of the season. The Predictor Challenge, for those of you that took part in the Predictor Challenge that we've talked about in the last couple of videos, they are all of the managers that entered the Predictor Challenge and what their predictions were. The MOS table is the current manager of the season table. They're all the managers that have scored manager of the season points. It's currently being led by Lee Poulter and Mark Benwell. The FFFL Cup group stage is confirmation of all of the groups in the group stage of the FFFL Cup and the fixtures and when they will take place. League table tab I've covered. The teams tab is all of the teams, details of all of the teams. So everyone's team is on there and you'll find it by your team name. It shows you your nominated club, the players that you've picked, your captains are in bold, the clubs they play for, their value, and the total value of your team appears at the bottom. So there my team adds up to 80 million. As a you can see there Ostrich Bastard's team adds up to 78.5 million. So Steve has 1.5 million in the bank because his transfer budget is currently 80 million. If Steve is in the bottom half of the table at the end of the month, then he'll get an extra 5 million to spend on his team. So then his available budget will be £6.5 million, and if he wants to, he can spend £5 million on purchasing a tactical gambit. The tactical gambits are detailed in the rules, although I may at some point add them to the tab to make it easier for you to view them. Or Steve can spend that £6.5 million budget. Rather than buying a tactical gambit, he can bring in a more expensive player. He can spend it all on his team. It's up to Steve. It tells you the assists that your players have scored, it tells you the goals that they've scored, it tells you the points that they've scored this week, and it tells you the points they've scored this season. At the bottom of the table, at the bottom of each team, you can see the number of transfers you've made. No one made any in game week 1, and how many points those players scored before you transferred them out. The penalty points cost of the transfers shows how many points you've lost as a result of transfers. Before the 1st of January, each transfer you make costs you 10 points. From the 1st of January 2021, each transfer you make only costs you 5 points. And then it's all totaled up at the bottom. So the team value, the total number of assists, the total number of goals, the total weekly points scored, and your total points scored. So that is all of the teams' information is the same on the teams tab. So you can look at not just your own team, but you can look at everyone else's team if you want. Just scroll down, all the teams are there. But the big change is the player tab, and this is where if you're using a PC or a laptop, or you've downloaded the Microsoft Excel app on your tablet or phone, you can enjoy the new features. The reason for putting them all on one tab rather than having them on separate tabs, as we've done in previous seasons, is this. First of all, before I show you the features, I'll explain, pretty self-explanatory, but I'll explain what this tab means. The name is the player name, obviously. The position is what position they play: goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, forward. The club is the club that they play for. Available for transfer is a simple yes or no. If they already belong to another club, then unless you are spending £5 million on the tactical gambit that allows you to transfer in a player that already belongs to another manager, you cannot transfer in that player, and that's why it says available for transfer no. So there's no need to ask me, can I transfer in that player? If you're looking at the latest update I've sent, and the available for transfer cell next to the player says yes, that means you can transfer him in. If it says no, it means you can't transfer him in because he already belongs to another manager, unless you are using spending £5 million on the tactical gambit that allows you to transfer in a player that somebody else already has. The value is the value of the player in millions, so but Leno is £5.5 million, and then weekly points is how many points they've scored in the last week. Assists is how many assists they've got. Goals is how many goals they've scored. And total points is the total points that player has scored. And the number of times selected is the number of times that player appears, or sorry, the number of teams that player has been selected by. So if it's blank, it will be because the player is available for transfer, and that is because none of the managers have selected that player. But Leno, for example, has been selected by 2 FFFL managers, as has Martinez. Nick Pope has only been selected by 1 manager. Arrizabalaga has been selected by 1 manager. That's what that column means. Now, you should just be able to, on whatever device you're looking at, scroll down all the way through the list to look at all of the players that are in the Family Fantasy Football League, all the way down to the bottom of the forwards. And there are 527 players in total available in the competition. Well, I say available, they're not all available because some of them aren't available because they've already been selected, but there are 527 players in the competition. However, you will notice on the name, position, club, available for transfer and value column that there's this little arrow that you can see, and that is to allow you to filter on this spreadsheet. So if you were thinking, as an example, of transferring in a player and you only wanted to see the players that were available, you could click on that little down arrow icon and untick the no. So it will remove the players that are not available for transfer, and it will show you it will only show you the players that are available to be transferred in. See, couldn't do that when all the players were on different tabs, but when they're all on the same tab, you can do it. Similarly, you might decide that you only want to look at players under a certain value. Let's say you only had you only had £3 million to spend. If you untick the select tool and just select the players that are £3 million or less, it will only show you the players that are available for transfer, because you've still got that filter on, and the players that cost £3 million or less. So you lower your search. You don't have to do quite so much scrolling. Similarly, you might be deciding that you only want a certain player. Let's say you only wanted to look at midfielders because you really wanted to transfer in a midfielder. Well, again, you untick the select tool and then tick midfielder, and it will only show you the midfielders that cost £3 million or less that are available for transfer. And you can see there that the number of players that are available are even less. And you may even decide that you only want a player from a certain club. Let's imagine that I only wanted to look at the Chelsea players that were available for that. Well, there are only 2 Chelsea players. There are only 2 Chelsea midfielders that cost £3 million or less that are available for transfer. Now you can, at any point you want, change your filters. So you might want to look at Fulham players for less than £3 million that are available. There are 3 of those. You might decide that you want to look at different value players. So that's, if you want to clear your filters, you can just click the clear filter from position on all of those, and you will see as you start clearing your filters, all of the players will then start to appear. And you might want to change your filter. So you might want to say, right, I just want to look at the players that cost, I don't know, let's go £7 million. Untick select tool and select 7, and it will show you just the players that cost £7 million. And then you can filter the ones by unticking no that are available for transfer, and it will show you all of the £7 million players that are available for transfer. There are only 14, and you might want to look at just the defenders. Tick defenders and it will show you all the defenders for £7 million that are available. You get the idea, etc, etc, etc. So that's the beauty of having all the players on one tab, and that is the beauty of viewing the FFFL stats in Microsoft Excel, that you can take advantage of all of those features. So hopefully that's been helpful, and you have a better understanding of the stats that I send out. One thing I didn't cover that I'll just cover before I sign off, it's all covered in the rules, but just in case you haven't read the rules, if we look at, for example, the Creed Bratton Society, who is so far on 68 points as at close of business yesterday, and Coldplay United, who are all on 68 points. And again, this might be obvious to those more experienced of you, but you might be asking, why is Jordan Williams in 10th place and Martin Maloney in 11th place when they've got the same number of points? Are they really joint 10th? The answer is they're not joint 10th. As detailed in the rules, when two teams have the same number of points, we then look at how many weekly wins they've got to separate them. And in this case, neither of them have got a weekly win, so they're still level. We then look at goals scored. Now, Jordan Williams has scored 3 goals so far this season. Martin Maloney has only scored 2. So therefore, even though they've scored the same points, Jordan Williams is 10th in the table and Martin Maloney is 11th, because Jordan Williams has scored more goals. So they are separated by that virtue. If they had scored the same number of goals, it would then revert to who's got the highest number of assists, and in this case, it's Jordan. If they had the same number of assists, it would revert to who's got the highest weekly total. In this case, Martin would be higher than Jordan, because his highest weekly total in week 1 was higher than Jordan's. Now, Jordan's going to overtake him, assuming things pan out the rest of this week, because Jordan Williams' current weekly total score for week 2 is 46, which is more than 39. Martin's score for this week is currently 24. So Jordan will, by the end of this week, assuming all things remain the same, be ahead of Martin Maloney in the highest weekly total stakes as well. If points, weekly wins, goals, assists and highest weekly total are all exactly the same, then those two teams are genuinely level and in the same position. Okay, so as I say, that's it. That's a little explanation as to the stats that I send out every week. Hopefully that's been helpful. If that generates any questions, by all means let me know. This has been a bonus midweek Banter in the Box feature. We will still have the regular true Banter in the Box episode with plenty of Banter in the Box. Sorry, with plenty of banter. That will still happen this weekend, Friday night, Saturday probably. So look out for that on the Family Fantasy Football League YouTube channel. And until then, I will see you later. Bye bye.